Today I'm sitting down with someone who has been a huge part of my personal and spiritual journey. From an engineer at Toyota to a mentor and a businesswoman, Tina is someone who understands the power of story and has helped so many, including myself, step into a deeper sense of purpose. Tina! How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I literally was just bragging about how excited I was to my friends and my coworkers. And I just want to say you've had such a huge role in my life. And I'm just excited for other people to hear how amazing you are.
Well, thank you so much. I am incredibly honored that you asked to call me today. So I hope to share whatever brings glory to God. So I'm ready.
Amen. So my first question to you is, obviously, so you started off as a high-ranking engineer at Toyota, right? And then you left Toyota to join a company that your husband has built. What was that transition like for you personally and spiritually?
Okay. Yeah. So leaving Toyota, that's where I was. It did not happen overnight. It was definitely a process. It was kind of following a difficult season, in my marriage and just me personally. And it kind of felt like as I found God, it seemed like my priorities, things that dictated my life before kind of had a hold of my life, like my schedule, my spending, what I saw was most important versus not as important. All those things kind of just started coming apart on me as soon as, we found the church right after our own struggles. And when that happened, it felt like my whole world was just, as I knew it, was starting to change. And my motivation for solving automotive problems was starting to come down. I wasn't as motivated for that anymore. And my focus on people just began to increase. I just started caring about people a lot more. And I think I felt like I wanted to gain a little bit more control over how I spent my time, how I spent my energy, and not, my priorities, my perspective was just starting to change. So anyway, my transition was slow, like I said, and I was an engineer, so it was super calculated. What we did is we ended up just taking one baby step, and that first step was going part-time. And I went part-time for about a year and a half, and it was going well. And so we, during that time, we financially planned, we saved, however many months of living expenses and paid off all the debt except our mortgage. And we kind of got ourselves situated just in case, we had to take the next step. And the next step came, and we did. And personally, it was a little difficult to tell people because, it sounds crazy to everybody else. And how do you explain, I feel like God's calling me over here to do this, and you're leaving this very cushioned job and this security, and you have to face people in the face and believe it yourself, and so there was a lot of humility in that, a lot of courage, just trying to, muster as enough courage to tell people that I believe this, when even some days I maybe didn't believe it entirely, if it was going to work or not. And so that was difficult, I took a big toll on my pride, most of all. I was a hard worker, and it kind of just felt like, you're going from a hard worker to not working. Are you working? Are you just helping? What are you doing? And it's well, I don't have everything, but I do know my next couple of steps, and so I started there. And so spiritually, I would say that this time in my life was probably the first time where I began to realize and understand what daily bread meant. For God to provide your just enough bread for that day, it was whether it's opportunity, whether it's encouragement for that day, whether it's support that day, whether it's financial or monetarily given to me that day, it was like the beginning of a surrender that I had never ever known before, because I had so much control over my own life. And so that was very new to me, and it definitely grew me from the inside out, and it actually began to overflow into learning how to follow and trust and surrender, even kind of to my husband in many ways, and how to allow him to lead, and it was his business, and now I'm following after him, and all these things that were kind of foreign feelings to me before. And I can say confidently that I don't think I would have ever grown spiritually mature the way I did had I stayed at my old position. This was definitely a spiritual growth.
Wow. It's one thing to pivot careers, but it's another to trust God and step into the unknown. And like, you've done that with so much courage and grace. So I applaud that. And speaking of career pivot, I mean, just literally speaking to you about my story and learning about, my cycles of bad habits was essentially what launched me into a new career. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because you are one of the founding members or founders of the Istoria Project, which had such a deep impact on my life. Can you share the heart behind Istoria and why you believe understanding our story is so important?
Absolutely. I love talking story. So Istoria, I think I mentioned, before I began moving away from my career, I did my story and my husband did his story. And it was such a pivoting time in our life. Everything hinged on that. It changed the trajectory of my life completely as well, like yours. It was, in a sense, diagnostic in that it gave me the why that I needed. I knew all the things that were wrong with me. My husband told me all the things that were wrong. Like everybody told me all the things that were wrong. I knew, but I didn't know why. And when I was able to break all the pieces out into a template and kind of backtrack cycles and habits, it really did open my eyes to a lot of things about how other people saw me. And when that happened, so that happened a few years before I resigned. After I resigned, I had the availability, and my pastor, who was the founder of Istoria Project, the main founder, because of that availability, and he knew that I had resigned, he asked me to come on board to help him build this company. And so that was, another big, huge honor, but another God moment, because had I not resigned from my old job, I wouldn't have been asked to do this, And so creating the workbook and, just working with people and doing a lot of the trainings and classes and small groups that we were able to do, and still are able to do, it's just grown it's deepened my empathy, I think, for people. It's like understanding that people are not just behaving a certain way because they don't like you. They might be struggling with something internal. So your empathy and your understanding that how we behave is directly connected to how we feel, and how we feel goes a lot deeper than this current circumstance. It goes so much farther back that, you talked about living in your habits, and we call them living in our worst ways, whether it's spending or performing or overextending ourselves or people pleasing, any of those ways. Like, why do we do that? What are we seeking? When we're living, other people only see the outside. Learning your story, you get to see where it was born. And when you know that, there's some things in life that you can't not know anymore once you find out, right? But now that introduces an opportunity to choose differently. It also allows the opportunity to know what you have to give to this world. It kind of surfaces all these bad things, but it also surfaces all these giftings that, maybe when we're using them on ourselves, they're very selfish and they're hurtful. But when we're using them on other people, it's like, wow, I am good at this, and so that changed everything for me. It kind of, we call it being redeemed, but it gave justification to some of the ways I say, oh man, I was such a jerk, and then somebody said, well, yeah, but you're good at doing that, so why don't you do that to help others instead of using it for yourself? Like, wow, that was mind-blowing to me. So it made all the impact on me, and I just wanted to share it with everybody else. I had the opportunity and the availability, and I just jumped right in, and I haven't looked back since, and it's been a part of my life. And yeah, it's just, I love speaking story with people.
It has definitely been a part of my life still to this day, Tina. Like, a lot of times when I do certain things and I don't understand why, I just go back to, okay, what was my you called it narrative. Like, what is my narrative? Why am I doing things like this? What is my inciting incidents? A lot of
responding to, right?
Exactly.
Because we're responding to something that we didn't even realize was there. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm so excited to also point our viewers to where they can figure out how to find their own story and their own narrative as well, which I'll include in the caption below. But what would you say to someone right now who feels like they're stuck in their story? Someone who can't exactly see what the purpose of their pain is yet?
That's a tough one. Somebody who's stuck in their story, I definitely would, first of all, ask them to find a safe person. Because as much as we try to figure things out about ourselves on our own, it's impossible. You need a sounding board. You need somebody, because what happens is when when our emotions are heightened, we lack perspective, right? And so if we're lacking perspective, it's going to be very difficult to get to the root. Also, when we don't have enough perspective, we don't have enough information, that can make us really anxious and really highly emotional as well. So the inverse is also true. And so if you're stuck in your story, you need to first find a safe person, because you need to do this with somebody. And then second, I would say that almost always, it's not almost always, always, it's never really the current circumstance you're in. And that's usually where we stay stuck, is just looking at this framework, this one point in time. And it's very difficult to connect anything outside of that frame to what's going on right now. So for example, it must be my job setting. It must be these people around me. Well, yes, but you had the same issue at the last job, or you had the same issue with family members, or you have, in different areas. So a lot of times I'll say, well, the common denominator is blank, and so a lot of times it's like, you can't fix all these other things and not expect the issue to just go away, because a lot of times it's an internal tension that's being, you're just seeing the external symptoms of it. So I would say that, and then I would say be ready to do your story if you have the opportunity, if you have someone that can walk you through something like that. Our workbooks and our videos are helpful, but I always recommend doing it with a person. That's probably the best way, because they're gonna challenge you to see things that you don't want to see,
right? To
say things that you've never said out loud, to really articulate a hurt or a person or an experience. And once you get that out, it's liberating. Nicole, you walk a lot lighter afterwards. A lot of times you can do this with therapy too, but we just have a template that kind of outlines it in a good visual. It's almost like an art. It's like a piece of art.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just say that, like, find a safe person, be ready to talk and be vulnerable. Be open to seeing how other things can connect to this one circumstance. And then I would just say, everything can be redeemed. Everything. There is nothing that our big God cannot do. And there is no behavior, action, feeling, pattern that cannot be broken or that cannot be used in a miraculous way.